Hello, this is my first tutorial on how to make a simple side saddle for a Breyer horse. First thing you'll need to do is select the horse you wish to use. For instance, I'm using this one. And then what you'll need is your materials. So you'll need a piece of paper in which to draw your side saddle shape, and obviously a pencil. You will also need some leather, 2 different kinds of leather if possible, but any material will do, whatever colours you want, however you want it basically. So for this instance I've got brown leather and I've got sort of a white yellowy leather. You will also need some round nose pliers. They're for doing the buckles. You'll need some little tiny rings, medium sized, a lollipop stick, some wire cutters, some wire, a pair of scissors, a marker pen, flat nose pliers in which to hold the glue pieces together, glue. It can be any kind of glue. You can use that one, or I use this one as well. This is the one you get in the UK, this is the one you can get in America. A spare stirrup, or you can make your own by bending some wire. If you're using leather, you can also use a tool which will show stitching marks on the leather. It's like a wheel. And you'll also need a hole punch for the leather. So once you've got your sheet of paper, we need to draw this side saddle shape. Now bearing in mind a side saddle is more squarer than a normal saddle, or a dressage saddle, or a jumping saddle. So we start with the gullet, and it's more square. So where we go into a big curve, we go into a square curve. And then coming round the back, funny little taily bit, and then round for the pommel. Same again for the other side of the skirt. So you end up with that shape. Obviously depending on if you've got a long backed horse or a short backed horse, just make this distance longer or shorter. And then for the top part, again, it wants to be squarer. So start with the sides, round for the pommel, whoops, and back down, then to the gullet again. And again, this bit longer or shorter depending on your horse. So now we've got that part, what we need to do is cut it out. And I'm going to cheat because here's 2 I already have. It's been used a couple of times. Right then, so we've got the top and the base, the skirt. So then what you need to do is you need to get your model that you're going to use. You can't really see that, but then you just need to just place it on the model and just make sure it is the right length. And then what we have to do is get the leather that we're using. Won't stand up. We get the leather, turn it so the smooth sides to the outside, place on the pieces, draw around them and cut them out. And be careful, if the leather is quite thick, not to cut yourself. So once you've cut those out, you'll end up with 2 pieces like so. It's got a bit bent. So the next stage is we need the hole punch, and we need to work out where we want the stirrup thread to lead. So obviously we always do it on the left hand side, that's this side, and we want it roughly sort of in the top corner, sort of there-ish. Use the smallest hole on your hole punch, depending on what your stirrup leathers are made out of. So in this case I'll be using this very fine leather thong, so that hole will fit lovely. Now what we do is just make sure that everything fits in place. Right, and then you get your lollipop stick and the scraps from your piece of leather from before. You line the lollipop stick like so, and it is about 2 centimetres. So 2 centimetres, and we draw around those. Like that. And you need 4 of those like that. And once they're cut out, they're the brown ones. They're the top side and the underside. And then I've got some white ones to tie in as well, so there's top side and underside. So you'll end up with 4. So the next thing we need to do is we need to put the girth straps on and the stirrups. So obviously we've got the little hole there for the excess stirrup, but then we need another hole midway for the stirrup to go through so that it can be better attached, so it's a bit stronger. And then on the underside you want another hole almost in line with that one. You can measure it if you wish, but I like to do a lot of guesswork. So there we go. And then level with that one, you want one further in for your main girth strap. You also need another 2 on the underside for where the girth comes back to itself. So slightly lower than your stirrup straps. That's 1. And a bit closer together as well. You see that? Yep. 2. So in your bottom panel you should have 6 holes altogether. 4 in one side and 2 in the other. So just make sure that they don't clash with anything, and they don't. Unlike normal saddles, a side saddle stirrup isn't attached to this part. It is a separate piece. So obviously that's where the side saddle part goes. So the next thing we need to do is we need to get your leather for your girth. And we need 2 pieces. And one we need to measure from this hole here at the back all the way round to the other side. The same with this one, but it will be shorter. So now you should have 2 pieces, one slightly longer, one slightly shorter. And get some more leather and do 2 more pieces, the same size as your girth straps to be fastened to. Now the next stage we have to do is we have to glue them in place. I'm going to use the American glue for this one. So what we do is we thread them through right side up so they stick up. Put a little bit of glue. Oh, that's way too much. So a little bit of glue and fasten it down. This is where the flat pliers come in. And you get a squeeze to hold it in place. And we do the same with the other side. Now in this case, these girth straps are a tad bit long. But not to worry, we can just cut them down as we need to. So just avoid that hole because I seem to have done them too long. And we'll just squeeze that into place. Squeeze. Just hold it for a minute or two. There we go. So now we've got a nice shape and girth straps. The next thing we need to do is we need to do the other side of the girth straps. So the longer one wants to do the same gluing process, but it wants to go to the hole in the back. So, over. Oh, fold it back on itself. Squeeze it into place. So we've got one that sort of sticks out backwards and looks very bizarre. Same again with the other one. Oops. So we end up with two long ones and two short ones. Right, our next thing we need to do is we need to make buckles for the straps. So you get a piece of wire, and please be careful with the wire because you can stab yourself very easily with it, as I have learned. I'll just fall out with a piece of wire. That piece will do. Get the round nose pliers. Now, the leather I'm using at the moment is really thin, so I can use the small end of the pliers. Obviously, depending on the leather size, use whichever end. So, but I'm going to go for the medium because I've got to get 3 layers through. So you go round to make a full loop, like that. And then when you get to the beginning, you then double back on yourself. So you've got that sort of a shape. Oh, can't really see it, but sort of an S shape. And snip that piece off as close to the bottom of the S as you can. So the next bit we need to do now is the, oh, my camera fell off, is the stirrup. So what I always find is if you get the average lollipop stick, you start it at the top, go all the way around the bottom, trying to hold it in place, and then back up the other side so, oops, so that it's level. That is plenty long enough for a stirrup that can be altered or not, depending on how you want to do it. Now the 2 rings, which I seem to have misplaced, so I'll get another 2. Just stirrup. So we need the stirrup. So what we do is we thread one onto the ring, like so, and then glue that in place. We will need another smaller piece of leather to do exactly the same in a moment. I'll just try and get some glue out of here first. Oops, way too much. Just wipe it off with my fingers, it'll dry, it'll be fine. So just make sure that's held in place before I let go of it. There we go. So we've got a long strap with the ring on the end. So what we'll do now is we'll just test it. So we'll put the stirrup on. And then what we want to do is we want to be coming back up through itself and go over that way, and it will need to twist. So just pull it straight. So we have sort of a stirrup. And then what we need to do is get a smaller piece of leather. I've got a few scraps here. And just glue that on the ring and about 1 centimetre long. So you've got that. You can see that. So you've got 2 pieces of leather on the ring. One with the stirrup on the end and one just the dead end. Now if you're not sure that your glue's strong or it might pop off, just give yourself a little bit more on the top part of the leather. So now we get the saddle again, and we thread this piece of leather through the hole, the little stubby bit. So you have that little piece of leather threaded through that hole. And then again on the underbelly we glue that on, so that will hold the stirrup in place. Oops, stand up glue. That's it. And just make sure that's nice and tight, because the last thing you want is for your stirrup to fall off. That's it. So now we've got the stirrup in place. So again, taper the end. That's that. And then the hole that we made first, thread that through, and that keeps your stirrup leather out of the way. So ignoring the Girth leathers, there's your stirrup. And the joy with this is you can make your stirrup shorter or longer. If you have any excess, say for instance you're making it for a model, for it to stay on that model, just snip the excess away and taper the end again. But I don't know what I'm doing with it, so I'm leaving it nice and long so there's plenty of leeway. Right, the next part, look at this one. These are the last pieces to go on. So the next part is the top bit, which we cut out earlier, which is here. I'll shift them out of the way. So now we just need to, I have a little saddle stand which I use, or you can use anything rounded, just to slot the saddle on like that, just to hold it in place a little bit. Plus if you're using real leather, you can wet your leather and hold it overnight in place like this, and it'll shape to that. Just depends on what you want to do. So we make sure this is lined up as so. So it's a nice little shape there. Now there will be a bit of overhang, but that's okay because we'll sort that later. So let's put that to one side. So we lather this in glue all the way around it. Now if you are using this American glue, It does dry very quickly, but it isn't very sticky. So, looks like a lot, but you need it. Just line it up with the front. Now this is where the tricky bit comes. So we've got the front lined up and that's glued, or gluing should I say. Now what we need to do is go to the back and lift the back panel up to the top part so it gives it a curve. And that'll glue in that shape. Make sure it's just slightly sticking out over the top. But that'll give you your curve for your saddle. Now, it doesn't matter if you don't have too much curve because side saddles don't really have that much of a seat. So, you just need a right little bit. And then just leave that to dry. Another thing that I tend to do when I'm leaving things to dry is I have a piece of ribbon. I thread it underneath the saddle block, up and over, and then tie a knot in it. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a saddle block. You could tie it onto your horse if you wanted. I've done that before. That works quite well. Plus it gets the shape of that model. And then just tie it really... Try not to do that. Tie it as tight as you possibly can, and that'll just hold that shape and help it glue a bit better. And just lift that endy bit up again, just to give you a bit more curvature on the back. We'll just wait for that to dry now. Usually about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the glue. Okay, so now we get our 4 pieces to make the leg holders. Generous glue on these because they need to be strong to hold your doll's leg. So, glue them together. Like that. And then what we do is we leave the endy bit so it's got a little pushy bit, and we bend this upwards. I tend to use a pen just to get a nice curve on it. That's one side. And usually it stands up by itself, it's not going to. And then we do the same for the other one. If there's any excess, because obviously when you cut them out level, and now you're doing them curved, just trim off the excess. So we have 2 curved little pieces. And then what we do is we just a nice generous helping of glue. Right, and decide which way up we want them. So for instance, I've got these white side to rider's leg. So the first one is the one we need to put on the sidewards. And we put one sidewards, and that will hold the rider's leg away from the stirrup. Sorry, down towards the stirrup. So bearing in mind you've got 2 legs. So we have one to hold you to the stirrup, and the other one to hold you away from the stirrup. Oh, it's a little bit high. I'll just drop it a little bit. That's it. And the same again. So we've got one pushing the leg to the stirrup and one pulling the leg away from the stirrup. And that's the important one, the higher one. So they're not level. They're not back to back. They are an odd way round. So one for your leg to go over and one for your leg to go under. and I'll show you. So just give them a bit more curving while they're on, and you're almost done. Oh, I'll just wait for those to dry, and then the final step is to put your horse and rider together and see how it looks. So now we've teamed saddle and horse together, like so. We need to team all three together. So what you need to do is we need to get her from straight position. We need one leg right up as high as it'll go, and the other leg a little bit bent, and try and keep her legs shut. It isn't easy. And then slot her on. Bearing in mind, please wait for the glue to be dried. Put the stirrup on and twist that leg in, because it can be awkward to fit on once they're on. Try and sort of bend her so her bum sits, because it can be a bit awkward. And then pull your stirrup leather up a little bit just to hold that leg in place. And then she's away to canter off into the sunset side saddle. Thanks for watching. I will be making a bridle to go with this shortly. I'll do a tutorial again, and hope you subscribe. Thank you. Bye.